Yeah, I mean, so currently what I'm operating with right now is a 5-year-old gaming laptop. I've been looking to build a new PC, and I've been kind of like all over the place geographically. I was back up with my parents. I'm now back down in DC again, and I'm going to be back out in California for a while. So like, I've been bouncing all over. So there's not been a good moment for me to sit down and assemble a PC. And once I do that, I'm going to be getting a nice new microphone, new headset, and everything. But it's just been still operating with this PC, which for whatever reason, the audio jack doesn't work anymore. One of the USB drive or inputs doesn't work anymore. So I have like a USB extender. I'm somehow making it work and still getting work done with it, but it's been an interesting haul with it for the past couple of months. It got me through college. I mean, I did all my work in programming and modeling and simulations and stuff on here.
Right.
But it's the end of an era.
So for a new computer, are you like going to manually build it, or are you going to get another company to build it? Or
no, I like to build them myself. I've done it before, and I personally like that amount of control over it. You can kind of pick things better and know exactly what you're getting and swap stuff out later if you get a new GPU or whatever, more RAM. So I like that flexibility. And with like some of the new stuff coming out for NVIDIA, I'm hoping that the 2080 Ti's and stuff, the price drops a bit on them. And motherboards right now are insanely expensive because there's, I guess, not as many people building them currently. So it's been really tough to find them for below like $1,000 even, for whatever reason they're so expensive.
I do use a company actually. I would build it myself, but I don't trust myself. So there's a local company that I have, and it's PC Specialist. I think they work internationally as well, but they're quite local here. So the delivery is really quick, but they're very open with like compatibility and stuff. So you just pick all the parts you want, and then they'll give you like suggestions, warnings for like a power supply and whether parts are compatible. But the main reason I go for them as well is the warranty. So if anything goes wrong, you've got a company that has your back, and
that's good.
And they don't overcharge as well. In fact, I think when I got this, the graphics card was way less than it would cost on Amazon or anywhere else, for example. I don't know whether they had like a large stock of them beforehand and the price fluctuated, but it was a good value. So
it's the benefit of buying from somewhere is the warranties on the whole machine.
Yeah,
I've built every PC that I've owned for the last like decade and a half or something. And yeah, the graphics card, I've bought a brand new system before, and that it was a 1080 when the 1080 Ti, and it was the EVGA one that had a water block attached to it as well. Right. It was awesome. It would run at like 40 degrees, and all of a sudden, and apologies to your ears, it would go, and it was the fan grating on something. It was obviously bent slightly in its packaging. I was like, oh, that's got to go back. And of course, then you're out. I chucked in a little 710 or something, a real low end card, but then you're doing things in Blender and the viewport's just going you're like
The scariest part is attaching the CPU and like really slamming that in. It's like you feel like you're gonna rip the computer in half. It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, if you've never done it before, you're like, is it supposed to bend this much?
Yeah.
Random bending enough.
Yeah, RAM. That always scared me before, because it was like, is the board supposed to go? And then click. You're like, okay, that has to be it.
Yeah.
Right. Hello, Kev.
It's gone.
Oh, I can't hear you.
Yeah. I think you're muted.
By the way, speaking about computer parts and stuff, I'm not wearing headphones today, and I usually always wear headphones, and the reason is because they were stolen, kind of.
Oh, actually?
Okay, so it's a bit more complicated than that. They stopped working, but because I had them for less than a year, Amazon would give me a replacement. So I sent these ones that I had off to be taken away, and they were sending new ones the next day. Now, they said they were delivered, they never turned up. And none of the neighbors have it. It's been a couple of days so far, but they said they can't do anything about it until the coming Tuesday. So someone's got them.
No. Wow. A porch thief or whatever they're called.
Yeah, it said delivered, handed to resident, and we were like, no, they weren't. Like, there were 3 people in the house. It's not here. It's not in the drive. It's nowhere. It's not at any neighbor's house. Sometimes, like in previous years, there's been like deliveries that have been sent to someone else down the road, but as far as we can tell, they don't have it either. So either the delivery guy's taken it or someone took it out the van. Like,
Yeah, I've seen videos of that before where someone will scan it, like the Amazon driver will scan it and then just take it with them and go back to the car.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird.
Strange.
I felt guilty once. The customer support representative wasn't interested. It wasn't an expensive item, but the delivery guy, we weren't in, so they put it behind a plant pot on our porch.
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, it says it's delivered. I can't find it anywhere." And it was tucked away. And I went to go see a neighbor across the way, and she was like, "Do you know that parcel's been there for weeks?" I'm like, "You could have told me weeks ago." So I can't remember what it was, but I've now got 2 of them.
Oh right, there we go. Yeah, we looked everywhere for this. I was like bending down under our cars, like it's definitely not here because these headphones are like 200 and something pounds.
You've got the Bose, haven't you?
Yeah, the Bose ones. Yeah.
Oh, those are really good usually.
Yeah. So...
I've got them. Wow.
There we go. I love them. They're my favorite headphones ever. So I'm really frustrated about it.
They're so comfortable.
Yeah.
And the noise cancellation's brilliant. That if someone's next to you, you can still have a conversation with them, provided you've not got too much sound coming through the speakers themselves.
Thankfully, these are pretty good quality as well. These are Sennheiser little earphones, and I'm really surprised actually. They measure up quite well against the regular headphones,
and they don't muck up your hair as much.
Yeah, so I can still work.
The ones I have are these. I usually use AirPods sometimes, but they don't stay in my ears when I'm running for whatever reason. They just go flying out. The first time I went for a run, it almost went in the sewer drain. But I've got these ones that are like a bit more like rubbery silicone on the inside. They're like tiny little things. They stick in super well. So
yeah,
so much better. They usually connect well with my computer, but I've been having issues with Discord. Just with Discord, with everything else, it works fine. But
yeah, that's something I've noticed as well because my my ear canals are different shapes on each side. Like the left one's quite small compared to the right one, but those regular earphones, they're just round pieces of plastic. They never fit in. I think my ears are a bit different.
I've never been able to have those. I could stand still and they just there they go, they're gone. And I've got quite small ears, unfortunately.
Yeah,
so.
It's like they're designed for like a general ear shape, and if you deviate in any way, that's it. They're just useless. So that's why I have to have these ones with like the tiny rubber bits on them.
Yeah, exactly.
But even then, when they come with these, they're usually too big, so I have to like order specific ones, and but you know they fit in perfectly fine. But yeah,
I have these things too. Like they're these little like rubbery things. You put the AirPod inside, and then it kind of like fits up in your inner ear like that.
Oh right.
So it kind of puts a little bit more resistance, a little bit more tension up on the top part to keep it from going flying, but. Even still, I feel like it doesn't do a whole lot.
Yeah, I've never tried them. I've never seen those actually.
Yeah, it's pretty nifty.
All right, let's try Kev version 2.
Spence.
Yeah, I can't hear anything.
Nope.
I'm gonna check.
I always find it amazing if I deal with video and sound all day, and something. I was trying to live stream and testing out my setup a couple of weeks back. On a Friday evening, and everything was working, but I believe it was I switched my camera on like this, and all the levels were bouncing, the music was on the right channel and everything. I was like, okay, cool, let's go. And someone said in the chat, "Oh, your voice, your audio, it's all crackly and distorting." I was like, okay, is it the broadband? Is it the stream? No, everything's green on that end. It turned out to be a USB bandwidth issue.
Really?
And the microphone was stuttering. And I was like, but they're plugged into literally different ports, as in one's 3.2 and one's a 3.1. So they can't be the same chipset. I was like, what is going on here? And I couldn't work out what it was. In the end, the only solution was to shut the whole computer down and start up again, which, as you know, kills a stream. There's no jumping back on that.
Damn.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
There you are.
Wow. Beautiful.
What's up, Kev? What happened? Oh, batteries.
The lapel mic, LR44s.
Happens. I use it for work too, so I think I left it on because there's this it has this thing, right? Yeah. So there's this little switch, and you can turn it on, and I I didn't turn it back off. So
Damn.
I think it was recording everything happening. Well, it was picking up everything happening. Probably burned itself out or something. I don't know.
You sound clearer than usual for me, but it might be because I'm using these earphones instead of the headphones.
Maybe, or maybe I'm just extra enunciating my
Yeah.
Going well.
words.
Yeah. You're stepping into received pronunciation.
I am. I've learned from you, Curtis. I am learning
Yes, join
how
us.
to enunciate and speak and communicate, which is something you do amazingly well on your videos.
Well, yeah, on the videos, yeah, but on the BlenderNest podcast, like when I watched the last one back, I realized that I slur a lot of the words when I'm just talking quickly. So,
I don't pick that up, but yeah. I don't know.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
I keep thinking to myself, oh, damn it. It's going to be people that don't understand.
Yeah.
I find that when you're listening back to yourself afterwards, when you're editing the video,
Injustice.
you're like, did I say it like that? That's completely the wrong word.
Yeah.
A few years back, I got a comment, and usually these type of comments are, oh, I better go edit that quick. I've left a burp or something horrible in the video. Went to it, and I made it like I don't know, you grab the UV sphere, chop it in half, solidify, modify, boom, you've made a bowl. Congratulations on making your bowl. I'm looking forward to seeing your bowls. Of course,
Yeah.
Wow.
Innocently, I listened through and I was like, what's going on here? And my partner was just chuckling away.
Oh, no.
Then it twigged. I was like, great.
That sounds like something that CG would probably throw in his video intentionally, though.
Yeah.
I know.
If you have
I
the
know.
right kind of audience.
Yeah, that's the trick is the audience. Like, I'm watching people just like I think like 99% of the people just want to be entertained. I'm just like I like convinced. Like I like carving out an audience of learners. I really do. But man,
Right.
but I watch these like people who blow up. It's like they just entertain, and it's like we're a society of people that just wants to be entertained, not necessarily taught. Like it's like if you're learning something while you're being entertained, then it's a plus. But like I think most people are just going on YouTube to get entertained. It's my
Yeah.
feeling. I don't have data to back it up. I should have data to back it up, but I don't. And like I don't know.
Well, sometimes like I'm on my phone and I come up across a really cool tutorial or something, and it's like I don't want to go through the energy of booting up my computer, getting Blender open, sitting down, carving out a half hour to make something. You know, it's like just I'm watching this thing, maybe scrubbing through it on my phone, and those really quick videos. It's like, oh, okay, I can get some tips really quickly that I can then apply later when I log in tomorrow or something.
Those quick videos. I don't think I could do one though. I've tried overdubbing and cutting into videos before, and I just can't get them below a certain threshold. Like they just can't do it. I think I want to teach too much, and there's not enough time. I think I just need to be more specific.
I feel that too, and I'm like, you know what? Like, I always wanted to do improv or stand up like for my whole life. Like I when I was a kid, I used to watch what was it? It was like one of the local access channels in New Jersey that we were picking up from New York. So we were getting all the comedy clubs, and at like midnight when I wasn't supposed to be awake, like I would have the TV on anyway, and I'd be watching these, you know. So I saw like Adam Sandler when he was a kid, you know, starting out. I saw Jay Leno when he was doing his first stand-up routines. Like I was kind of like wanted to be that, but I never thought I was like funny enough. But like whatever. Like if you write really good and you get comedic timing, you can do it. But I was like, man, I was like maybe I should be funny. Like I don't know how many people are learning from my stuff. Like maybe there are. I'm sure people are learning because they're coming back and they're like doing the stuff that I teach in my videos. But it's like I'm kind of at this threshold where I'm like, man, I don't know. I just want to be funny. But then I'm like, I want to teach. Like Michael was saying, it's like I just want to teach. So yesterday, like case in point, right? I'm watching Houdini videos because I got an offer to do a really cool like entertainment based like thing, and I hope it comes through because it's really awesome. So I'm like, all right, I really got to like brush up Houdini to do this job. And I don't know. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and for some reason I'm still up, and I find myself just watching some videos. Like some videos suggested how to be more photogenic. So I start watching it. Like my wife comes out, she's like, "What the hell are you watching?" And I'm like, I don't know. It was suggested. It was like funny, and she's just like cracking up, and it's just like this dude talking about like how to like, you know, do all this stuff on the camera. I'm just like, what am I doing on YouTube? Like,
Yeah,
famous black hole of YouTube.
Yeah, you'll find yourself just watching random stuff.
yeah, I'm just like, I think I'm overthinking it, man. I'm just overthinking it.
Yeah,
like,
maybe. There is like a fine line, or like a delicate balance somewhere in between education and entertainment that some people resonate with really well. I don't.
Yeah.
I think CG is a lot closer to it, but like,
yeah,
there are like channels that do it so well that you would just watch anything they make about any subject. Like, you know, Kurzgesagt. Let Me Know has just put up a new video. I don't know if you know them. Yeah, you know, so they do like random investigation type videos. I think their most recent one was about like UFO investigations with the US Navy and stuff. But they present it really well because it's got all these like wonderful After Effects animations and stuff, and it's all like so crisp and just so well made that you just watch anything they talk about, really. But that's entertainment in like a different form. Like, it's not comedic entertainment, but it's just like it's like curiosity fuel, you know.
And you have to appreciate the amount of work that goes into it too. That's a lot of the stuff I do day to day for my work at NASA is making these kind of science explanation videos, and the amount of planning that goes into that, just the research to understand it first, to distill it down to like a 3-minute video. There's like Kurzgesagt videos that you mentioned that they always blow my mind, but they take like 3 or 4 months just to plan, and then animation could take even longer potentially.
Yeah, I do the same. Not for general public consumption, but we do very similar stuff. I guarantee that our departments have probably crossed paths before. But like, you try to distill it down to stuff, and you guys are taking it even further because you're going for the general public. We're going for specific audiences, and it's tough because you're taking this like stuff that literal rocket scientists are coming up with. Like, it's literally rocket science. Like, you know, it's funny to say, oh, what are you, a rocket scientist? Like, well, yeah, I work with a bunch. Like, you're trying to like make that accessible to the general public. So I think the stuff that you guys do, especially, you know, it's tough. And it's a lot of work. I mean, writing the script for that is just the script itself is like a month of solid like, nope, can't say that. How am I going to say that? How would a third grader understand this? So yeah.
And sometimes it's tough working with scientists too, because there's a certain way they have of talking where it's very technical and it's designed just for their like 5 people who studied that one specific topic. Yeah. So when you're pitching an idea, like, hey, let's do this really fun cartoon animation, and you're kind of, I wouldn't say like dumb it down, but make it a little bit more understandable to the average person who doesn't know quantum theory or whatever. Just kind of trying to get them convinced that your animation is something that is not, that is doing justice to the subject, but isn't also devaluing it at the same time. So it's really tough to sell them on these things, to make sure that they know what we're working on is valuable.
I know, just trying to get them to buy in to the value of, you know, storytelling and filmmaking. Because these are the people that watch movies. Literally, these are the people that watch. I'm using literally a lot today. These are the people that watch movies and go, "That's not right. You can't possibly ever. That would never ever happen in real life." And they're the ones that ruin the movies for everyone around them. Like, never watch movies with these people. They're geniuses. They're brilliant. They are on a level way beyond most people. But they're not fun if something isn't technically accurate.
Yeah, we had this thing in college. I was a geophysics major, and we would have this thing every month where a professor would watch one of these movies with us, like, I don't know, Impact or like 2012, like these disaster movies or whatever.
That's the worst one, man.
At the end of it, they would just break down why everything was wrong. And it was actually kind of funny in a way to watch it, just because it's just so far removed from reality, and just having someone actually break it down, technically speaking, it's like, wow, okay, it's pretty good.
Yeah, like they can't suspend disbelief. That's one. It's they're so educated on their topics that they cannot suspend disbelief and just enjoy a movie. Like, they're the same people that they get so focused. I mean, I love these guys. I do. I think we, as a society, we need these people. We do. But it's funny because you can, like, be out in the parking lot and watch them just walk into cars. Because they're so hyper focused on a problem that they're trying to solve that they will walk into the biggest thing that's in their path and not even realize it's there. It's hilarious. But yeah, so the work that you do and that I do, distilling these topics down into things that a broad audience can understand, is an amazing amount of work. You're totally right. Like it's so hard to do. So when you see, what Curtis was talking about in that channel, and you can see these people distilling this down into something, it's most people don't realize how much work goes into that.
Yeah.
It's true.
And that's what I think really draws me to some of these YouTube channels, is the passion that the person has for the subject really shines through in the video, and it makes it that much more watchable because you see that they really enjoy it. They're really having fun with the topic. It kind of reminds me of, I don't know, like Mythbusters for some of these videos. You can see that they genuinely love hacking together something or working through a problem and kind of presenting that to the public. It's really exciting to watch those kind of things.
It is, and that's true, because you can you totally watch it and watch it and watch it. It doesn't matter. Like, they could be talking about like toilets, and you'd be like, "Oh my god, that's the most interesting thing ever!" Like, I didn't know this toilet did that. It's like,
yeah,
it's a toilet.
I want to give a shout out to a video. It's a video that actually made me like just go wow, like the amount of effort. Do you know the channel Ahoy? AHOY. So they used to do like videos about weapons and stuff, and like
they did the game series, didn't they?
They did
love those.
They did a 1 hour video called The First Video Game, and it basically breaks down the history of what could be considered the first video game. But the thing is, it wasn't a regular video because it was all physical. So it's like a slideshow, but all of the slides were like these physical transparent sheets. Like the sort of things they would have in the old style projectors.
Yeah.
And as they're talking about it, they have a hand that comes and places it down. But there's like hundreds, like thousands of these sheets. They do the whole video, the whole 1 hour video as a presentation, and then they cut back between B-roll. But it's like all these physical sheets that they're using. And I'm thinking they had to design the whole video, get the sheets made, and then like set that up and do it like mostly in real time. And like that's a really strange but awesome commitment to effort. Like, I don't know. It just adds to the
I really
feel.
love their brief history of graphics.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was an awesome one. And it's good to know how things have got to where they are today. And it really helps you sort of like ingrain in your mind how lucky we are these days with something like Blender and how far we've come in just even the last decade.
Yeah, even especially with graphics technology, because when you look back at that, there's no single way to represent graphics. Like we're working on a convention that we've just agreed on, essentially, for like most graphical frameworks, DirectX, OpenGL, and even lower levels than that. That everyone's just agreed on because that's the simplest way to do it, and you're just building layers of abstraction above that. But someone could very well just go back down to assembly and just write a whole new way of representing graphics on the screen, rasterizing graphics, if they really wanted. But most people don't really think about that. They just go, "Oh yeah, that's how graphics is always done. That's how it always can be done, and that's it. You don't even need to think about it." But it's definitely.
Was it in the 90s? There was a big push, voxels versus triangles. There was a big push, and you had dedicated GPUs that could kind of do one or the other.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It was just as I was getting into computers and lining up to buy my first graphics card all those years ago.
Yeah, it's just like coordinate systems. You don't necessarily need to use like a three-dimensional X, Y, or Z coordinate system. You can be really weird and have everything relative and not have any world space whatsoever if you really wanted to. But that's not as easy for us to understand. Maybe for like an alien race somewhere, who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, anybody excited about the reported new graphics cards coming in the next couple of days?
Next couple of days. Ones? Oh, right. Well, yeah, although I haven't read too much about it, so I don't know.
Yeah, tell us.
So I think it's either on the first or the last day of this month. The 3000 series is So it might not happen there, but it looks like Nvidia have set the date for that to be the launch of their 3000 series stuff. And I remember getting really excited about the 10 series, getting my graphics card, and then not being able to render in cycles for about 6 months because it wasn't compatible.
Oh,
So I had this really nice graphics card. I'd sold my last one to do it. So I'm going to hold off getting one, but it's top of my list.
Are these ones the 24 gigabyte VRAM ones?
Possibly.
I think I read about that. I saw 20 something, and I was like, damn, that's.
Yeah,
I thought the first ones are starting with like only 10 or something initially.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Still,
so it sounded like it was more worth it to hold off for like a couple months before they released their full.
Yeah. Work out all the bugs in the first one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
the amount of gaming I do these days, I'm like, nah, I can't be bothered. But just seeing the rendering time of some of the new cards, not the brand new ones that are coming out soon, but just the 2080, I'm sat there going, come on, catch up. But when you're waiting for an animation, that's where it really kicks you.
Yeah,
I'm fine with waiting like a couple hours for like a really high quality still image. If I'm just doing one frame. But when that's like the standard for every single frame for like a 500 frame animation, it's like, well,
yeah.
Do you guys use any of the render farms? Like I know there's the Sheepit one that's for Blender, that's like a free one, but then there's also like Concierge and a couple others.
I've used Concierge. That was very quick. I worked out that if I used every computer in my house, of which there's 8 GPUs available and a couple of CPUs at the same time. I'm not greedy with computers. I just have kids. They use the things. If I used all of them, it's roughly 7 times slower. It would take like 7.5 hours to do this 30-second animation that I wanted to do, and I uploaded it to there, and it came back in 24 minutes. And I was like, right. So internally, I now know that if I want to, if I hard push, this needs to get done by the end of the day. I want to finish off the video. I'm willing to spend. I think it cost 19 quid. So about $25 or so. And I thought, hang on, that was worth me spending that money to just get that done, dusted, so I don't have to worry about opening up the video tomorrow, putting it all together. And
your energy bill for that too. I mean, it'd probably be about the same for running like a bunch of computers.
12 pence, I calculated. Yeah, I've got a notepad with all of the calculations because I was trying to work out, well, if I was doing this more and more and more, at what point would you cross over and what point would it be worth buying an old mining rig and putting 13 graphics cards in it, because it wouldn't matter about the bandwidth over a PCIe 1 slot, because once the data's on the card, it gets computed. It's not like playing a game where you've got this constant backwards and forwards. So I did get a bit excited and went on a bit of a nerd trip and trying to work out what would be an optimal way of having a render farm at home, because I get the whole. It's certainly cheaper if you're not doing it professionally. just get the render farm as and when you need it. But otherwise, it was a lot of rendering. I think it was like 6,000 hours of rendering, at which point the crossover point was.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's
it would be interesting to know.
Studio level.
Yeah, I've never tried one of those render farms actually, because I always try and keep my renders like optimized enough so that I could just do it on this computer. But I think it's really just because I haven't had a project that's big enough yet. Big enough that's way beyond my capabilities. But yeah, I have heard good things about Concierge. So,
it does Eevee as well as cycles. That's the...
Oh, nice.
Now,
usually I try to do my animations in Eevee if possible, because it renders just so much quicker for me. The issue is really nailing in lighting. I have to spend so much more time to get that to look proper.
That's why That's why I had to use cycles on the scene.
Yeah.
It was a nighttime scene with lots of reflections on it. It looked okay on Eevee, but it didn't match up to all the other ones that were nice and quick, because it was a dark scene. It needed more samples, and I was just like,
right. If I'm going for something more stylized, I feel like Eevee fits the bill really well. But if it has to be photoreal, the ray tracing is not enough to.
Has anybody tried some of the other render engines like Octane or Lux?
I've done Octane as well too. Yeah, that works pretty well.
I haven't tried them with Blender, but I did try Lux back in the day with, I think, SketchUp or something, but not with Blender.
Or eCycles, is that... Apparently, there's not much of an improvement if you use the Linux box, but I've heard good things about Linux. About eCycles on Windows.
Yeah, eCycles is pretty good. I have to actually download the latest update, but it is faster. Not quite as fast as Eevee, but if you need ray tracing, then yeah, I mean, I've seen some really great stuff done in Eevee, but yeah, it's like if you need hardcore reflections and you need hardcore GI. Although I will say this, I was playing around with that SSGI.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I I don't think it's production ready yet necessarily, unless you really know what you're doing. Like I'm getting like little sparkles and things that I got to map out, but it's pretty nice.
Okay.
Like it's pretty convincing. I turned it on. I'm like, yeah, all right. Like it makes a difference.
Out of the box, is it look good enough, or do you have to kind of dial in the settings a lot to get the lighting to look proper?
I was doing a night scene, so for that it was getting some like little glows and stuff, and I turned off bloom and I turned off a number of other things that I was using, and it seemed to dial it back down a bit. But it was pretty nice out of the box. I gotta say it was really it's promising. It really is promising.
First version as well.
What's that?
It's not bad for a first version.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah, for the very first version, I'm really excited about this thing. Like, I think the person that made this is just onto something because it makes a difference. Like I had 2 lights in my scene, and I had just a basic rim light just to get the nice just some nice background lighting, and then I had like one kind of like a emulating like a sodium lamp at night, and more in the orange spectrum, and I was getting some like really harsh crushed blacks, but I didn't want the crushed blacks there, and I turned on SSGI, and all of a sudden it was like getting nice bounce all around all around my subject, and I'm like, this is pretty cool. And I'm doing like the whole thing for like it was rendering. I mean, it still rendered about a couple of minutes a frame even in Eevee, but it was so worth it. I mean, I turned on cycles because I have fur in the subject has fur, and I'm like, this is gonna take forever in cycles. And then in Eevee, it was just turn on SSGI. I'm psyched.
That's awesome. Okay, yeah, I gotta give it a shot then. I've not had a good chance to use it yet, but
yeah.
That's the other downside of building up a home render farm. Something like that comes along, and you're like, oh well.
Yeah, I know. It's like, oh, I just spent all that money. So that's where I think real time's going. And there's another thing I was looking for. Redshift seems to be an incredible. It's not for Blender yet. They haven't put it out for Blender, but for other software, it screams. It's fast. So something like that,
to do caustics properly as well, because that's one thing that Cycles is notoriously not very good at, is doing when light passes through water or through glass, and you get those really nice shimmer effects and dispersion as well.
Yeah, it's a Redshift is biased, so it gives you that. And I realized like I grew up using Mental Array in Maya, and that was a biased engine where you could cache. There was Final Gathering and there was Global Illumination and Photons, and you can cache photons, so you can get accurate stuff. It doesn't like just fire it out into the scene. It doesn't fire all those rays out and then just like trace wherever they go and like that's it, like a non-biased render does or unbiased render. But the bias, you can cache it. So it's like, okay, this is as far as they go, and it scatters, and it's optimized and efficient, and you get those really nice path tracing, so that you can do caustics and things like that. And it's really
caustics
nice.
is something I've had a lot of issues with in Blender, getting that to look good with like a pool scene or something. It's really not. There's ways to hack it. I've seen like a couple people find some alternate ways to almost make like a gobo, like kind of like a mask type thing that you're then scattering through, and it just seems a little bit hacked, but. Yeah, some of those other renders. I mean, there's also Corona, terrible name right now, but Corona render, I know some of my friends use that, and it's also looks pretty good, the results you get with it. Very photoreal.
That's cool to know.
Nice.
I haven't seen Corona. But yeah, getting something like Redshift is really nice. And it's cheap. I mean, for a render, it's $500. And I think
it's a perpetual license, or is that like renewed every year?
I think it's perpetual. Or I think you get support up to like a certain I think you get support up to a certain amount, and then it's like, I think if there's like one where you get support forever, it's like 650 or something. I was researching this about a month ago, and then I started looking again, but it's under $1,000 for a solid renderer.
Yeah,
That's pretty.
I mean that's where
pretty
a lot of them
fast.
get you. It's like I wanted to stay with Cinema 4D. I had it for free through university, but then once I graduated, I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to be paying however much it is, like $1,000 a year or something.
Yeah,
license.
I know, but it is Maxon, so it's the same people that own it.
Right. Yeah.
They own Redshift. Michael, you were gonna say?
Marmoset is another one that I've been meaning
yeah.
to try. It's kind of a rendering, texturing suite tool bag, I think it is.
That is pretty good.
I've heard of that, but I've never used it.
Yeah, I tried it a little while ago. It's quite good, quite stylized as well if you want it to be, but it's really good for physically based, presenting physically based content as well. I think that's one thing that they really focused on, because I think they used to do plugins or assets and stuff for Unity as well. I'm just pulling strands out of my mind here. It's been years since I had a look at this, but I think that was one area that they really focused on. But the tool bag is really cool software because you can also bake with it, and they had a really clean method of baking normals, which was like a lot better than anything I'd seen before. So
yeah, I've been working a lot in Game Engine recently, so having something that will bake textures well as well. I've trying out different things. Substance Painter being another one of the ones.
Yeah, from what I remember, Toolbag had this cool way you could auto-generate and visualize cages for the objects. If you presented a high and a low poly one, you could visualize and change... Oh, hit the microphone. And change the inflation of it away from the mesh, and you could visualize that. That's nice. I thought that was really cool.
That is cool. There's also Radiant Pro Render as well.
I use that on my Mac, yeah.
You like
it? It's a shame that nothing else in the house can use it, but there we go.
Yeah.
I've got a really old Mac Mini plugged in with Thunderbolt 1, plugged into an adapter into an eGPU, and that's got an RX 580 or something in it. And it's good for troubleshooting when a student has a question specifically about their Mac setup, and I'm like, I don't know, why are you using a Mac? They seem to have deprecated all their support for everything.
I know. That's right, because Mac used Radeon for a long time, right? They used those cards.
They still use AMD, the Radeon cards in there, but they've dropped support for OpenGL, OpenCL a couple of versions ago. So I had an NVIDIA card in there before that could run CUDA, updated the operating system. I'm like, why is this not working anymore? Found out after reading that they'd deprecated the ability to do it, and that obviously means that was useless at that point. So it is a shame. I have a few students. Macs are a brilliant computer. Don't get me wrong. I love them as a machine. It's just when it comes to 3D modeling, they don't cut it with Blender. Obviously, there were other programs. If Blender worked with, is it Metal, their graphics API? Then it would probably work absolutely fine. In fact, if it worked with Metal, it would also work on your iPad. So
that's true. Yeah, it doesn't make any. They make their decisions. They have their data. They know what they're doing. They're a brilliant company. But for 3D art, 3D graphics, we never used them. Not for 3D. We used them because we used them for Shake for quite a while, and we loved Shake. And that was like nothing real, and then Apple bought them or something, and then they were running Shake. Shake was a great program. It was an awesome compositor, but we still have one or two machines that still run Shake, and they're like one operating system upgrade away from killing Shake off, but we know it, so we just don't upgrade those operating systems, and they're like off the internet. And we just use them because we have legacy files for Shake that we want to pull out every now and then, but like that's about it. It was brilliant. And then Final Cut was the industry was using it, and then it just decided that they didn't want to do it anymore. We're like, well, great, now you guys are an iPhone company. That's wonderful, but what about all this, production software that you have that the industry uses?
It's a real shame that, and it's not just Apple. Any company could do it.
They can.
Like recently with the whole Epic thing, you probably heard of that. That's gone a bit ballistic.
The App Store.
when they said, right, okay, Epic, you've pulled this move on us and taken it or done the court thing or whatever, and then they're like, well, at this point in time, you're not allowed any of your software on any of our platforms. It's like, well, hang on a minute, that's not lashing out at Epic at that point. That's lashing out at millions of developers.
Yeah, through Unreal, because that blocks that as well too, right? Like a lot of the indie devs.
It's just like, whoa, a company, feasibly, if a court hadn't stopped that, you might be in a position as a game studio right now going, oh, Max were the wrong choice, or something along those lines. Just getting the rug pulled out under your feet like that. I mean, it could happen with many of the programs that we use. I try and stick to free and open source if possible, but I know it's not always possible.
Yeah, it's not. Because it's great to use, like Linux is great, or Linux, or however people pronounce it. I always get in a fight with people about that, but like it's awesome, but it won't run Adobe. Like you good luck running, Photoshop on it. And you can use the open source, GIMP and a number of other things, but it's not open source. So at some point you still have to jump back into Windows. Yeah.
I almost switched about a year ago. In fact, I was running Pop OS, which is based upon the Debian distribution. And the reason for Pop OS, if anybody wants to use it, is it comes pre-installed with all the NVIDIA stuff. So you can get straight in and start rendering straight away without having to download all the extra bits and bobs to get graphics cards working. Nice. And I was running it and absolutely fine. And I use Resolve as my video editor. And I was really excited, got it all installed. And I've got Resolve Studio. I've liked it that much. And having the graphics card doing the video render, it's just like, wow, that's quick. No more going off for half the day to render a big video. Anyway, I read all the stuff, and Linux, because of the licensing, Microsoft and Apple have obviously bought the MP4 licensing, because MP4 is not an open standard, it's proprietary software. And that there are hacks around it now, and you can get it to work. So I might go back. But you would import an MP4, just a screen capture, and it would be there, the video would be there, and no audio. So and I'm like, no, this is no good. And the only way around it at the time, to my knowledge anyway, was to use something like ProRes, which is absolutely fine, but you're on about 4 gig a minute of video.
Yeah.
Like, whoa.
Yeah, ProRes is huge.
Yeah, I can't store that amount of data, not locally anyway. And then you think, oh, I'm saving all this money using free software, but I've had to buy a really big NAS in the oven.
and that's what Yeah, you just hit the nail on the head with which a lot of people, especially in the comment sections of so many videos, don't seem to get is, yes, Blender's free. Yes, it's open source. Yes, you can run it on Linux. Yes, it's all free. But any workaround that you want to use, if you want to make a jump into anything else, good luck. Like you could spend so much time doing workarounds, and then it comes down to how do you value your time? Like, do you, when you're a hobbyist, it's a hobby. You're not really valuing your time. You're not putting a monetary denomination on your time because it's a hobby. You're doing this for fun, right?
Yeah.
But the second you go and you pick up a freelance job to earn money, even just to pay for coffee or whatever, you immediately start to value your time, and you're like, hey, wait a minute. Oh.
Well, it's about, hey Kev, I need a program to do X, and you're like, oh yeah, I know this brilliant one. Oh no, it doesn't run on Linux.
Yep.
Or vice versa, it can work with anything. It's nice that it comes full circle, because I know a few weeks ago we were talking about add-ons and how people value their time and everything. And I'm so thankful I picked up Box Cutter. Like I've started doing a few hard surface things with a game I'm working on at the moment. I'm just like, I am not doing this manually.
I picked it up. I picked up I didn't pick up Box Cutter. I picked up or maybe did I bought Hard Ops
and Decal Machine, I think. I've had them in my basket for ages. I'm like, I'm just gonna do it. I picked them up when they had that sale, and I'm like, I haven't fired it up yet. I picked up
I picked up 3 pieces of software that I haven't fired up yet, but I got them at such a cheap, just at such a deep discount. I'm like, I know I'm gonna use it at some point, so I'm gonna buy it. So I bought Hard Ops. I bought this terrain. Oh man, I can't remember. It was an awesome terrain generator, and then I bought Auto Rig Pro, just simply based off Marcom's videos and recommendation. And it's too bad he's not on today, because man, but I picked it up and I'm like, this is awesome. Like I can totally use this for like all the character work I ever want to do, and it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Because I had bought they had a Real Illusion had a COVID sale, and I picked up Character Creator 3, which is phenomenal, for like half off or something. And I'm like, well, I could use Auto Rig Pro and bring this into Blender, and then fire that out as Alembic to any other program I ever use. And it's just like these pipeline tools that are phenomenal. I'm like, well, it's going to save me hours of work.
I like,
you know,
I like the term COVID sale, as if it's celebrating COVID. Like,
oh, I know. It's not the most PC thing to say, like celebrating this thing when I don't even know, it's 180,000 in the United States alone. Unfortunately, it's like horrible.
Yeah.
But, they had this sale. It's like the lockdown. I'll call it the lockdown sale. How's that? We can kind of celebrate lockdown. It's not really...
Instead of celebrating, it's just making things accessible to people so they can learn new skills in this time.
Yep. And it was great. And I took advantage of it. It's kind of a once in a lifetime, opportunity to jump into some of that software. And, people would miss it if they're like, I don't want to pay for anything. I'm never going to buy this. Like, well, that's fine. If you're not making money and this is a hobby, but realize that some of these deals and some of these things, even putting a little bit of money into a hobby, can pay dividends down the road if you ever want to take it professional. So you never know.
There's a meme that goes around the PC space about getting a £2,000 machine or $2,000 machine and not wanting to pay $50 for a game.
Yeah.
Same true with Blender. I don't know. I'm often lurking around on the Facebook and other forums, and I see people going, "What spec shall I get?" And they list it out, and they're all excited about getting their brand new machine. And I bet you start going, "How about this? $38 app? No, too expensive."
Yeah.
I never quite understood that. You'll pay for the hardware, but you won't pay for the stuff that actually uses, that you're using on the amazing hardware.
Nothing without its software. That's why iPhones are very popular devices.
Mm-hmm.
That ecosystem that's there.
I use the Adobe Creative Cloud like many other people, but their pricing is such a weird thing, because it's designed to get you to sign up for the full Creative Suite, really, because like the cost of just having Premiere Pro is like almost the same as having the entire Creative Suite, like. And you can tell that they've just jacked the price up for the individual softwares just to force you into that, which I don't agree with. I think that's really weird and a bit, I don't know, odd. But I only really use Audition and Premiere Pro, and that's because I really like them. I think they're very good at what they do, but none of the other softwares, and it does feel like a waste. And I would rather not pay that. And I have tried DaVinci before, but I'm not too fond of the interface as much. Because I've customized my Premiere Pro into a way where everything is like super efficient and it's exactly where I want it on the screen. So I'm muscle memory at this point. So I don't want to change it. No. But yeah, I wish they would put the prices down a bit, because like I want to sign up to new subscription services that I'll find more useful. Like, massive royalty-free music collections and stuff like that are like a good quality, and but they're on a subscription model as well. It would be like $10 to $20 a month or something like that. But I'm like, okay, well, I'm paying more than that for Adobe. Maybe I can like kick that out and get this in, because it's hard to keep track of all your subscriptions, and you don't want them to accumulate.
It feels like you're going to a buffet in a way. It's like you paid this price to enter in. It's like you want to make use of it. You want to like take advantage of all the resources, and that's why I get Adobe Creative Cloud for free through my work. We like pay for a subscription for it, but there was a time when I was paying for it on my own. And I was still in school, so I was busy with coursework, but I wanted to take advantage of Premiere, Photoshop, After Effects, but maybe I'd use it like 3 or 4 times a month. So I'm like, well, why am I paying this monthly subscription for this thing I'm using a handful of times? And that's tough for creators. I really feel like people who are strapped for cash and you're trying to divide your interests between a bunch of different program subscription models. It's tough to do. I feel like they should almost have more of these trial. There's like a couple trial runs that you can do. Like I know for like Houdini, there's like an express version. I think there's like a watermark that they put on it, or for these other things.
You
but
can't use it
it's awesome.
but making some of these things more accessible for people so they can kind of get their feet wet with it for maybe a year or something, and then if you want to purchase it fully and if you really see yourself using it, because I think that's kind of the barrier for a lot of creators who are trying to start with some of these things. That's why I guess so many people use Blender. But if you want to learn another software, it's like a big not only time investment but also financial investment to get up started with it.
Yeah, I have trouble tracking like all my income and expenditure throughout the months and the years, and that's because like money comes in at different rates from the different websites. So like Gumroad pays every week, which is fantastic. Other places pay every month. Some places pay 2 months late, just as a standard or for legal reasons or whatever. And you're like, well, it's hard to know exactly how much you've made in a month, like because you have to look at it like a few months onwards, then look back and go, oh, okay, maybe I should cut down on this. But the way I try and keep track of it now is to try and make services pay for themselves. So I pay a certain amount every month for an upgraded Gumroad account now, but Gumroad pays for itself, right? Because I make more than the upgraders, costs, so that's fine. For YouTube, I pay for extended Google Drive space, and I was paying for some Google Cloud features, but not anymore. But the YouTube income pays for the Google Drive space, so Google pays for itself, But with Adobe doesn't pay for itself. You can make the argument that maybe I could package that inside of the YouTube income, and yeah, I suppose that does fit in there as well, so that works. So I'm constantly trying to think about it in ways of, okay, how much of this subscription is self-sufficient? Like, do I have more room inside of that income? But because I don't know exactly how much is coming in and going out, all I need to do at the end of the day is just look at the bank account, and it does go up. So I know that I'm not doing something catastrophically wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh well.
Yeah. It's I like the perpetual model. Like I stopped with Adobe, and I picked up for Photoshop. Instead of Photoshop, I'm using Affinity, and I'm loving it.
Yeah.
I think it's I paid again another lockdown sale, right? I got it for $25. You picked it up too? Awesome.
And Designer.
I'm Designer.
Oh, yeah. I use Designer every single day.
It's so awesome, right? It feels so fun. Like when I had to go from freehand to Illustrator, I was so bummed out because Macromedia freehand was phenomenal. I loved that program. It was fun. And then I was like forced into Illustrator, and I'm like, this isn't fun. It's not. It's not fun. So when I picked up a Designer, I was like, it felt fun again. Like all of a sudden, vector art is fun. And so I picked both of those up for $25 a piece. So for $50, I have this perpetual license forever of really awesome software. Yeah, there's still a few little bugs, that they fix in iterations, but it's newer software, and it's really, really, I'm loving it.
Yeah.
So I've done
exactly the same with Substance, both Designer and Painter. As far as I'm concerned, I'm never going to max out the 2019 version. Not in the next couple of months anyway, or even years. I'm never going to max out the capabilities of Substance Painter 2019, and I don't think there's going to be a big change in how we use normal maps, albedo maps, and all ambient occlusion and everything else in the next probably decade or so, unless something really fundamental changes of how we're doing graphics. So I'm just perpetual license. I paid me £80. That's it. Thank you.
That's awesome. I love that. I mean, from a creator standpoint, you want to have perpetual income, right? So you want a subscription model. It's not perpetual. I mean, you want what's man, I can't. The word escapes me right now. But you want a subscription base, right? you kind of want continuity. That's the word I'm looking for. So continuity is good because you can bank on it. You get enough people paying you that much a month, and you can project out your numbers. You can spend money just marketing. It's a good model. But for the end user, it's like if you're not using it, like you were saying, Curtis, if you're not using Photoshop or Illustrator, but you're paying for it, it's like it kind of feels like a waste. It's like going to a buffet where you're only going to eat soup and you're never going to eat like the 19 other things that are in the buffet. It's like, well, you're paying for it, but you're not going to eat it. So it sucks. You feel kind of like you're getting ripped off.
Yeah, I feel like maybe I should just open up Photoshop and draw some really stupid, gross things just for a laugh and then close it. And like, okay, I did that this month.
Exactly. Oh, it paid for itself in this joke that I threw in my video. Great.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And then it falls under YouTube income. So you could partition Photoshop out into YouTube income.
Yeah.
But or create some brushes and sell them on Gumroad or something, and pay for it that way or something. I don't know. But it's crazy. I feel it. It's like, what are you paying for? Like, I use DaVinci Resolve. I fell in love with DaVinci because years ago, I got with Lightwave, they threw in Digital Fusion or Digital Fusion Plus or something, DFX Plus or something. It was a version of Fusion that it was like kind of stripped down, but they sold it with Lightwave, and it was phenomenal. And I started using it back then, and I realized that Blackmagic bought them, and it's free. So I downloaded it, and I was like, oh wow, you can get it with DaVinci, because DaVinci used to be like $1,000 or something, and that's free, and they're just using it to sell their hardware. And I'm like, well, this is great. So I started using it, and then there's a $300 version that you can get of the whole suite. I'll probably pick that up for this job that I hopefully will get. And it's phenomenal, and it's perpetual, and you don't have to pay every month for it. I mean, I personally love Adobe, but
the amount you get with that free version though is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
it is.
I upgraded mine in the foolish idea of having the other machine in the other room. When I add it to my render pile, it would go off and render. I ended up not using it like that because they use the NVIDIA the GPU for your encoding. So my render times went down from 20 odd minutes for a 10-minute video to about a minute to 2 minutes. I was like, whoa.
Yeah,
I can't even make a cup of tea in that time anymore.
I know. It's amazing. It's so fast. And I know that Premiere uses...
Well, you get a load of extra effects that I probably will never end up using. I think I've used them in one post-processing effect I've used so far. It was for a trailer I made, and I wanted a vintage sort of feel to it. The old shutters, the shutter and the film grain going across. I went, okay, there's one called like...
The hand crank?
Yeah. Called something construction. Drag it on. Oh, that's awesome. Adjust the slider. Oh, that's exactly what I wanted. Brilliant. And I was trying to figure out how I could potentially do that sort of thing over in even in Blender, because you can do sort of some effects like that over in Blender. I was like, no.
Oh yeah.
You know what? That was worth its weight in gold. Just being able to drag, drop, fade, done.
I agree, and I just the base package of that is so phenomenal. It's I fell in love with it, and I use it. I mean, I use Premiere at work all the time, and I love Premiere. I grew up using Premiere. It's a great package. But again, it's like, I would pick it up if a client requested it.
I feel like
Yeah, well, that's part of the job, isn't it? It's part of the quote and everything else.
Yeah. I would probably get rid of the Creative Cloud if I could replace Audition. Now I know there's
comes with Resolve. So in Resolve itself, you have a couple of bars along the bottom. They used to be named. You've got like an edit tab. You've got your media pool, which I suppose is that clips with Adobe. I'm going to make stuff up now. Then there's an editing section and another section that's new to them, and I've not used it yet. I just go to the normal edit one. Then there's Fusion, which is like their After Effects, and then there's Fairlight, which is Audition essentially.
Right.
And I've used that for things like noise reduction. If some reason the fan's kicked on the computer and it's just too loud or something like that, occasionally I'll run it through there, and it's got an AI learning system as well. So if you just stick it on that and let it run through your audio, it'll go, oh yeah, there's the consistent noise, and it'll remove just that out. It's really neat.
That's cool. I really like Audition's variety of noise removal features because they've got a few different techniques and you can just pick and choose between them.
Yeah.
But another thing I like is the brush for fixing a waveform. How if you look at the waveform, you can essentially see where things have gone wrong and then use a brush just to draw over it. Then it will interpret what's nearby and then cleverly fix it. So it just, it identifies the issue and gets rid of it. And that's
nice.
That's different from other softwares. Because, with like Audacity, when you select and edit that audio file or a section of it, you're essentially just doing it along one axis. Like you click a band and then you do something to that. But with Audition, you can select it across two axes. So you're looking at the actual waveform, and then you can like draw a brush over the area, and then it cleverly figures it out. So there's things like that I think, okay, well that doesn't really exist in other software. So
I've not seen that before.
So I don't want to give that up yet. If that suddenly appeared in like an alternative, then I'd jump away. But that's the thing. There's just like these tiny little things, tiny things in the Adobe package that I don't want to let go of. And as soon as they're out, that's it. Like Creative
I like
Cloud
the dynamic link as well between things. So I can start editing an animation in After Effects, link the project file to Premiere, and then clean up my audio, linked to Audition, then right back to Premiere again. That's super helpful for me when I'm working through, so I can just keep things streamlined. That I don't really see between other programs being able to have that. If you're buying a separate, I guess some of them are free, using a separate program and trying to link them up that way, it's a little bit trickier.
Yeah. The DaVinci Suite is getting there, but Adobe really has that locked down. It's the workflow is astounding in Adobe. If you want to stick in Adobe, it's outrageous. And there's nothing yet. And I've been speaking to people at Affinity too, and they're interested. They seem to be interested down the line in creating something like After Effects, but right now there's nothing. There was Motion, but there's nothing that's quite like the layer-based approach of After Effects. DaVinci, the Fusion, is more similar to something like Nuke versus an After Effects thing. You can do a lot of that stuff, but After Effects is really a best-in-class, one-of-a-kind piece of software that it's a Swiss Army knife. So there are times that I'll pick up After Effects and have the license on in Adobe for that month for that or whatever. Like I'd turn it on, but like yeah.
Affinity.
That's the other thing is. Oh, sorry.
So I was going to say Affinity used to be, or still are, Serif, aren't they? The company. Because I used to use Serif Draw Plus and all of that as well back in the day. I don't know if they still sell that anymore, but then they stopped doing that and started doing Affinity instead, which is a much better product. But it's nice to see like some software developers still in the game, because we don't have many companies that are doing like these big software suites. We got like a select number of them that are doing really well, but it's not like a huge market. I mean, it's a huge market for in terms of audience size, but it's not like there's a huge number of a huge amount of competition going on.
There's so much competition, and there's not really much incentive to do it. There is actually, I saw for Photoshop, I'm not sure if you've heard of this, it's an online, so you have to go to your web browser to use it, called Photopea. Have you heard of that before? It literally looks identical to Photoshop, down to like the interface of it. The UI is identical. But it's a free online-based Photoshop. So I've recommended that in a few tutorials before for people who don't have Photoshop, because it's the same exact thing.
Wow.
But I forget, I saw it on Reddit a couple months ago. Someone's like, oh, I'm developing this new Photoshop alternative. Ask me anything. I'm like, this can't be real. But it's impressive. I mean, they literally just grabbed the exact UI from Photoshop and developed it into their own standalone product.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would just be cautious in using that for anything. That's the same reason I haven't used when we were talking about the different render farms.
Oh yeah.
Like I can't trust my client's data out on anything. So I have to keep everything, just even stuff I don't sign an NDA for, I'm still just like, until I deliver it, nobody sees this, so I don't even want to risk, even if a render farm is awesome and they say they're secure, I still don't trust it. it's just me. I want to keep my clients' data locked down until
Yeah.
they deliver it to their audience. You know, so
Yeah, for us, we run into that issue a lot at my work too, as you can imagine. Like everything's super confidential, so it's all super internal, down to like the file sharing. We've got like super encrypted file sharing systems that we use, just to make sure that we're not leaking anything out at all before the public finds out that we've discovered aliens already. It's like this big thing. Yeah.
I know. Yeah, we keep the aliens in the basement. It's just it's an open secret. It's like, but yeah, it's true. Like you don't. I mean, everything is super encrypted at work. That's why I went to Nomen. I did a course at Nomen when I first moved to LA. I did one course. They have this like 9-week Maya program. So I did 1 week, just the lighting class, and I took it with Alex, who owns the school. And it was the coolest dude ever, right? He's awesome. And I remember talking to I think it was Pam, one of the people who worked there, and she told me that basically, because I asked her, I was like, "Well, I got this job offer for something in engineering," and she was familiar with the company at the time, and she was like, "Yeah, it's great because you'll get paid nonstop, but your reel is going to be like this small."
Yeah.
And
all those private projects.
Yeah, 14 years later, I'm like, "Yep, my reel is like this small." I'm like, "I really can't show much of what I did, so I have to make stuff up. I have to do like my entire show reel until I can put stuff on, that I've been working on in the last few years, that's still under NDA, and like out on the outside, I can put that on my reel. It's like it's tiny. I'm like, because it's all proprietary.
Yeah. We have that to a certain degree with something. So like a lot of the stuff ends up going out for mission videos and stuff that I do. But there is like this competition model in NASA where different research teams will basically bid or compete for a new mission. So they have to put together over the course of a couple of years a proposal that often goes head to head with another team's proposal, maybe from a different NASA center. So we'll be competing with JPL or something here at Goddard. And then only one of those will end up getting purchased by the government to go forward. And a lot of the stuff for that, it's never going to see the light of day if the mission isn't accepted. So it's like a lot of.
You guys are such cannibals, man.
Crazy. Yeah, it gets intense. I mean, the world of science, journalism, and work, like these researchers, it is cutthroat. Like these publications and stuff. And it's oftentimes if a discovery is made, they are racing to get this out before another institution can publish that. And oftentimes it'll come out simultaneously, and it is intense. So it's kind of crazy to watch. I feel like it would make great TV, like a great HBO series. Like I had this professor in college who she works on mass extinction events. So there's this theory that dinosaurs became extinct because of an impact. But her theory is that is actually massive, large-scale volcanism on the order of just the entire world. There are volcanoes. There's something called the Deccan Traps in India that contributes to like a lot of output volume. But she is like one of the only people in the industry who has that theory, and she's gone like toe to toe and been like gotten death threats from the warring authors, and it's been this crazy competition. And actually, HBO is making a series about her specifically. For like her life story, because she almost died originally when she was doing some field work in Australia, and then she woke up and she thought she was surrounded by penguins. Turned out to be a bunch of nuns and a priest trying to get her to confess her, to get her to sign her last will and testament. And she's got this insane life story, but it's a cutthroat industry, science. It's interesting.
Wow, I had no idea. That's insane.
Yeah. I'm sure there'll be some good content coming out from all the COVID vaccine research as well soon, with like all of the different race to the cure for that too.
Well, apparently Russia has a working one.
Yeah, I don't know.
I would totally take that.
Yeah.
Russia has a fast-tracked working one.
Yeah. Working one.
Yeah. Here in UK,
totally safe.
Oxford has a working one.
You're close, right? Yeah.
Oxford has one that has succeeded in trials so far. So yeah, I think we do. But there are others. That Germany has one as well, I think. But yeah, I think all of these, but most of these will be
combine resources. Who knows?
Yeah, but it's very like, I think it's so sensitive. It's a national security issue now as well. because like
Perhaps
as
they
a
invented an even deadlier strain during the during the vaccine.
yeah, but it seems like the vaccine is like such a commodity. I mean, as they were saying, like in our news, Michael, that like everyone was trying to hack into Oxford University while they were sorting out the vaccine. Russia, especially, we've had a lot of trouble with Russia. Not to get too political, but
of course,
yeah. But now it's like a national security thing. It's like it's a secret that like needs to be kept and protected. It's crazy.
Yeah. And I guess they also want to make sure that it's not price gouged too once it does come out, to make it affordable on a large scale, because you could definitely see a private company picking it up and saying, "Hey, we'll charge $1,000 pop." It's like, oh,
exactly.
can't do that.
You'll see the rise of the next pharma bro, like Martin Scarelli. Who just jacked up EpiPens 1,000% overnight because he's a pharma bro.
Yeah.
I could see that happening. So yeah, definitely want to.
Yeah.
Talking about
this has to roll out to everybody on Earth. I mean, it only works as everybody gets vaccinated, right? I mean, or at least like like 88% or something, where it's like herd immunity at that point.
I was going to say, talking about NDAs and stuff. It reminds me of the film industry, because my dad is very high up there, and I've seen it. Because even when I've gone in just for like day trips and stuff, I still have to sign NDAs. Like even if you're not working there, that's it's really tight there, and sometimes compartmentalized. But yeah, crazy. And because like I've had to do some work even while I was in school, even if it's just paperwork and stuff, where like you can't say a thing. But even there's some like security issues as well with people trying to get information, as you can imagine, like especially with extremely high budget films and stuff. So you always need to be careful. And I think that's why I'm also especially careful about showing things on my channel on public spaces. Like I know that if you show someone like an area of sky or natural environment and like just a few odd markers, they'll be able to figure out where you are in the world. Down to like a really accurate level. And most people are like, oh, it's just a road, there's no signs or anything. I'm like, no, that's enough.
Yeah, there's this game that I've seen people play. I forget the name. It's like geolocation or
GeoGuessr.
something. Was it?
Geocaching.
No. There's like an online. I know geocaching. There's this like online game that I see this one person.
GeoGuessr is.
GeoGuessr. That's what it is. Yeah. Yeah, there's someone who is like a wizard with that, where he could just see like a bush, and it's like, oh, that's Canberra, Australia. It's like what? And so. Yeah, it's insane. And now with like a lot of the machine learning and stuff, you can just train a computer to scrub through a bunch of images and match them up. So.
Yeah, if you know what to look for, I mean, there's markers everywhere, and this is where AI is quite scary, because people are biased towards focusing on certain patterns, and AI is impartial. So for pattern recognition, it's crazy. So for example, like with what you're saying about the bush, if you know what different genuses of flora look like and how they diverge, and you can pinpoint them to continents and islands specifically, and regions as well. But it's a thing about, again, not to get too political or anything, but people go, okay, well, it's different outside, same inside. Not necessarily, because there's a whole field of study about bones, and you can tell what area of the world people come from based on the shape of their bones, like their skulls and stuff. And if you show like normal people that have had no exposure to that kind of field of study, they'll go, okay, well, a skull's a skull. There's a human skull. But to someone that's trained, they look at it and go, okay, they come from Nepal, and stuff like that. So yeah, crazy. If you know what to look for.
If you don't, there's actually a really interesting on that topic, a really interesting documentary. I think it was on Nat Geo or Discovery Channel. I can't remember which one, but it was it's called The Human Family Tree. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that. I think it should be required watching for every single human on the earth, because it traces the diaspora out of Africa like 100,000 years ago or something. And then what they did was they swabbed DNA from some neighborhood in Queens, New York, and where it was basically they figured out that like there's a representation of every ethnicity on Earth in this one neighborhood. So they went and they swabbed DNA, and then they traced back the DNA to where they, and it's just amazing that they were able to put together that like that it really was environment shaping the different, you know, ethnicities and different looks of people. So down to even bone structure, down to everything, we adapt to the environment. And they proved it flat out. It was like, it's the most profound, like it, you watch that and you're like all like any like type of racism just goes out of your mind. You just, it's impossible to be racist after watching this show. It's just like, wow, that happened. Like that's who we are.
Yeah,
And like they pinpointed it all basically, if I remember correctly, down to like one tribe 100,000 years ago or something like that. It was like it was insane.
yeah,
It's like we're all kind of incestuous and we're all related.
Yeah, speaking about that, I think, you know, Bill Nye, the science guy, there was a video that got shared around Reddit quite well explaining skin tone and how it's all about vitamin D production and maintaining folates. It's like pretty good how like if you get you need enough sun exposure to generate vitamin D, but if you get too much and it kills off your folates or reduces the amounts, and you need a delicate balance. So it shows this graph. And it's like it's a perfect gradient from the equator to like the poles of like from brown to white skin tones. And it's like the more exposure you have, like it's just that's all it is, you know?
Yeah.
It's very simple.
It literally is all it is. Like that's it. Like there anything else is pseudoscience, just defending some garbage position. Like I'll probably get death threats for that one too. But like I don't care. Like it's the science is there, and it's like you're like, wow, all right. You know, if you're gonna hate another group of people, like hate them for their food or something, but you can't hate them on science. It just doesn't.
And I think, and they'll be like, I mean, the people are gonna argue everything, right, all the time. But
they're gonna argue.
People want to like argue evolutionary differences and stuff, but humans have not been around long at all. Like
not long.
One thing I like. I mean, I'm loving reading about history more and more now, but like not modern history. Certain areas of modern history I like. I like the world wars because I think they're fascinating. But I don't like them. But like
reading about the psyche behind them,
but like World War II pretty much has defined the entire future of humanity, right? Because it's such a all right. Well, that's a different subject for another time. But anyway, reading about human history, how it developed, and civilization hasn't been around for long. Literally, we can conceive mentally the number of generations like the civilization has existed. It's not a big number at all. And that's one thing I found quite amazing, because when you're a kid and you learn about like, oh, kings and queens, and you think, oh, that happened like
so long ago.
So long ago.
Totally different existence.
Yeah, and then there are like some stories that popped up that really put that into perspective. Like apparently someone in like 1700s or something, a groundskeeper in this country was just digging around, and he ended up uncovering a lead coffin of one of King Henry VIII's wives. And he opened it up, don't know why, and she was perfectly preserved. And this is 1700s. And I was like, wait, hold on. I thought that was supposed to be ages ago. 1700s isn't that long ago. And if that wasn't that long ago and she was perfectly, then that must mean that. And like you start to like suddenly visualize a timeline, and you're like, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
You can almost imagine yourself living to that long if time went backwards, you know, even though you won't. But
yeah.
So yeah. It's mad.
Yeah, if you think about just like the scale of geologic time, it's insane. I mean, and that's why like the whole argument about global warming and it not being a big deal, it's terrifying, because the rate of temperature increase right now over the course of just 100 years versus over the course of like 1 billion years, it's insane to think about that kind of increase. We've never had anything like this recorded in geologic history. If we look back, we've had warmings before, we've had coolings before. Obviously, we were at one point almost a snowball Earth, and life was almost completely eradicated before there was enough warming to kick that back and get us back to an ocean world. But it's scary to think about just how quickly just we've impacted the world in just our short couple thousand years on this planet as a species.
I know the core samples don't lie. It's there.
Yeah,
I mean it's all there, and like since the Industrial Revolution, there's been a marked spike.
Like, that's the thing; it's the rate of change that's the issue. It's not the fact that
it's on the order of like tens of thousands of speed faster than was in previous years. Yeah, like I said, there's no record of any increase like this in the past. The last time there's something anywhere remotely close to this, I think almost 90% of life on Earth went extinct. And now that was I think like 25 million years ago. Was like one of the last great extinctions, but now it's like it's unlike anything we've ever seen before, and it's almost at a point where it's too late because just I think it's like a degree or two Celsius warming in the oceans is already basically baked in, no matter what, because there's this circulation that goes on over the course of decades in the deep oceans. That's impacted, and there's nothing that we can do to change that in the short term. That's just kind of baked in and will impact us for years to come. So we've already have that baked in. So I think science has been saying we need to cap the warming to nowhere above 4 degrees centigrade. But I mean, that's not going to happen, which is terrifying. So.
But we have to run our render farms
too, because it's like, 4 degrees Celsius. I mean, that's the difference between like, I don't know, spring and summer. It's not a big deal. What's the big deal? Or what's an inch of ocean rise? What will that do?
Yeah, but it's the butterfly effect, right? If it kills off plankton, and then the things that eat plankton start dying off, and it's symbiotic.
Yeah. That's why invest in property in the north and south latitudes, like pretty far up and pretty far down, because like places like Florida are gone in a couple of years. So you'll have oceanfront property in Kansas pretty soon. So that's a good place to invest.
Well, we've got a house in Florida.
Oh man.
That's just the example that everyone uses, because that one you can see it pretty tangibly year to year. Receding pretty
screwed.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there's places that are like below sea level. Like I think Holland is like at or below sea level. So if it just rises like a little bit, it's flooded.
Yeah.
Wow.
Talking about alternate theories and stuff, because you said about the dinosaur wipeout, there was that theory about a massive melting of glacial content around the end of the Younger Dryas, as they called it, like 12,800 years ago. And people think that's like the origin of like the whole flood story and stuff for various cultures. But that would have been like a very quick change, not something that's a natural part of the planet's cycle. And they did find a crater underneath the ice sheets in Greenland, I believe.
That's right, yeah.
Which was quite new. And the only reason it went undetected was because it's just been immediately covered over because of where it is. So that's
the team who does that research is based on my work. It's called Operation Icebridge. They've been doing like gravitational scanning of all of Greenland for the past couple of years, and they're able to find that crater. It's massive. It takes up like a good part of Greenland. That crater.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's really putting together a story that there was like a sudden cataclysmic kind of event that happened really quick in like the geologic timescale, but yeah, that's kind of shifting around some of like human history a little bit. Like, oh, okay, well that has to fit in somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like if you're hit by a meteorite, it's gonna obliterate you or in the short term in that area. But I mean, there's these things, like I said, I was talking about volcanic eruptions. Those are over the course of many years, and the impact that they have is more on the atmosphere. So they'll impact by putting a lot of particulate matter. Like I'm not sure if you remember, like a couple of years ago, there's this eruption in Iceland that basically knocked out travel for much of Europe for a couple weeks. So those kinds of things can block out the sun and basically completely change our atmospheric physics for many years based on just how much energy we're getting in from the sun, how much we're reflecting back to space. It changes the albedo, the reflectivity of our planet, which it's this snowball effect. It just kind of impacts all different areas of the planet versus just an impact, which obviously will kick up a lot of dust into the air as well, but then they'll filter down much quicker than a volcano erupting constantly and constantly outputting gas and particulate matter to the atmosphere.
Yeah, it's like Mordor darkening the skies in Lord of the Rings. It's you block out the sun and then the orcs come. It's just how it happens. But I mean, if that were true in Greenland, and then the massive flooding, the people who were situated, far away from there, they would never have seen the impact, and then they would have gotten the flood, and then there's the flood story.
Yeah,
right, exactly.
They wouldn't have had satellites that can pinpoint, what exactly happened. They wouldn't have had, communication with anybody living up there, and there was nobody really living up there at the time. So it was, you would explain it however you could.
Yeah, I think it's what's his name, Randall Carson, that's very into that whole theory. Basically, he goes around North America and he looks at all this, tries to find all this evidence for it. Some of the stuff is really interesting. Like if you take cross sections of parts of American landmass, like even right in the center, and you look under the soil and like the base of it. I mean, sorry, the ground level looks pretty fine, but then if you look underneath, everything's slanted and in layers, and you're like, that's really weird, because it's like the only reason that would happen is if there were massive floods, and as they retreat, like deposit sediments in that kind of way, like massive waves. Then you think, hold on, wow, there really must have been something going on there. But it's crazy. I think that would be more spectacular than any other like regular cataclysm in Earth's history, because it's one that humans could have lived through. And suddenly that puts a different element on it, because suddenly like these massive changes have like a human perspective, and you're like, what would that have been like to see? Because if something does hit the Earth like that, like a big asteroid or a meteor, then landing in Greenland, you know, probably would have caused a lot of flooding, because it would have detached a ton of the ice sheet as well. And if something hits like that, it basically sets the world on fire, because if it's big, it ejects a bunch of material up as well, and that has to rain down again, and that lights certain areas of, you know, forestry on fire. So again, there's theories that killed off a bunch of the megafauna, you know, the large animals that used to exist. An alternate theory to that was that humans killed it off, but, you know, people contest that because that's a lot of killing that humans have to do.
That's a lot of killing.
It's a lot of killing.
Yeah.
We must have been very hungry.
It's interesting. But like some of these theories are controversial in certain areas of science because it's very speculatory. And there's in a lot of those corners, it's like there's only a very few people that are quite religiously fighting to prove them. And same with like other areas of study like history and that, because again there's
one side oftentimes.
There's a word for like Egyptology. There's a controversy around that as well, because some of it's, I mean, it's always open for new ideas, people moving dates around. But there's a specific word for it that I've forgotten that's actually been given to Egyptologists who are completely resistant to any change in what's already been taught. Like they teach it and that's it. Like what they figured out so far, that's the truth. And like no one's allowed to bring up any new data. If they find something new there, then nope, that's
not science.
Yeah, exactly.
If you follow, like if you look at like Robert Schoch or John Major Jenkins, like I had lunch with these guys, I met them, they're really cool, but man, they tell you the stories like Egypt does not want, and I'm not gonna like put words in their mouth or anything, but like the gist I got was Egypt does not want to counter any of their dogmatic history. Nothing. So like, you know, saying like, you know, the Sphinx is 10,000 years old and predates the you know, the pyramids, or that there's, you know, there's a chamber below one of the paws of the Sphinx, and you know, no, none of that. You can't go in there and you can't look. Like they're very protective of their history or their version of what happened there, and they don't want anybody messing with it.
Yeah. It's interesting.
But I mean, it's crucial to understand that because it was one of the cradles of civilization. But on the other hand, it's like you want to be respectful of their government too. So it's like, what do you do?
Yeah, the thing is, like, information like that affects everyone, I feel like, because when you're dealing with ancient history, it doesn't belong to any one nation or culture on Earth today. All right.
Yeah.
And this is why it's especially sad when you remember when ISIS was flaring up and they were destroying like Assyrian architecture and stuff like that. And you're like, no, don't do that. Like, it doesn't belong to you. It doesn't belong to the people of Syria necessarily, and it doesn't belong to any specific person on Earth. It's something that everyone shares, right? It's part of
all
history.
Of us.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think the only reason people try and destroy or hide things is insecurity, really. Isn't it? It's like, we don't want you to see or know about this, you know, we're the only important people, you know. So
it was only recently that I've been hearing about the theory that around the ancient Egyptian time, of which there is like 4,000 years worth of history or something along those lines.
More, yeah.
But the Sahara was a green place.
Yeah.
It wasn't a desert. So what I certainly grew up with in all the pictures and the books when you're learning about ancient Egypt, you're like, nope, this is all wrong.
Yeah,
This was a heavily forested area and jungles and everything else.
Yeah, that's the theory that Kev brought up there. That if you look at the bottom areas of where the feet of the Sphinx are, I mean, it looks just like water erosion, and you're like, well, there hasn't been water there for a very long time, like
very long.
Yeah,
it's cool to also look at the connections between different continents too, in terms of what you find, in terms of like just how they're related. So, for example, New Jersey, which is very close to where I grew up, actually was almost a part of Northwest Africa. So there was, at one point they were connected, but then there's this rift from volcanic activity that split them apart, and Pangea, and they pulled them apart and they're separate. But you find very similar rocks in New Jersey that you also will find in parts of Northwest Africa, very similar animals that were now fossilized there in the same two places too. So it's crazy kind of how we're all connected in that way too, and how there's this overlap between cultures and societies.
I can't remember who it was, but there was some guy in the past, one of the people that ended up, I don't want to say inventing, but realizing continental drift, and looking at like South America and Africa and going,
Wegner.
It's that. Yeah, I think that's the guy. It's like they look like they fit together, and you can imagine for the time people would go, "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard." It's like, like the Earth is not a jigsaw puzzle. What are you talking about? But
I know.
I mean, it's true.
You really want to get crazy. Look at the Olmec culture, and there's evidence of international trade. Stuff that you find in across entire oceans. And they had trade.
Yeah,
and this is like thousands of years ago.
There's crazy stuff like they found this thing from ancient Greece, I think, a really complex navigational tool with all these spinning gears and stuff. And they're like, we had no idea they had anything like that. But apparently they found one of them, and it's like in really bad condition, and there's only part of it left. But they've done a reconstruction, and it's this really complex machine, something that looks like it would have come out like of the 1800s or something. You're like, damn. Like,
and that goes to another crazy theory on this that there's the 24,000 year cycle, which we don't have time to. I don't even have time to glaze the surface of. But there's a book out there written by a guy in India. He's dead now. He's been dead for years. Swami Sri Yukteswar wrote this book called The Holy Science. And it details this 24,000 year cycle of civilization going up and civilization going down. And there's so much to it that like I said, it would take like 3 hours to explain. But the point is that all of the progress that we've seen since the Industrial Revolution in like 100, 200 years, even if you just take the last 100 years of human existence, right? And the technology and the amazing brain power that we've shown in that time, to not believe that we've been around as humans for 100,000 years or something, to believe that we've never hit this before, just because we don't find evidence of it, like that we've never been at this point before in all of our entire history, and this is the only 100 years that we've had this kind of revolutionary technology. Not necessarily harnessing the power of the electron or anything, maybe steampunk, maybe that direction, maybe like other types of technology, like the thing you're talking about in that, from Greece, this amazing machine. We might have been here before. And if you look at, there was another documentary on Discovery Channel, I can't remember ever. Nat Geo and Discovery are the same thing for me. But it was called Life After Humans. And it basically showed that after like 10,000 years, the only thing that still exists are rock. Like everything else breaks down. They were like talking about plastics and all sorts of other stuff would actually break down, and you wouldn't see much evidence of it after like 10,000 years. So that was basically like the gist of it. I'm probably just paraphrasing it, but it was pretty telling. Like the only thing you see are like carvings and rocks after that point.
Yeah, you got to think like the only thing that really gets preserved is stuff that's written down essentially, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Stories.
of course, people have made sparks like in the past. Like someone has undeniably accidentally made some form of weird electrical change in like voltage and caused a spark to happen, and maybe they didn't know what was happening. Maybe somehow they did like kind of figure out what was happening, but I think they found some weird rudimentary batteries in one of like a desert somewhere once, but it was just like a jar of like acid. And so someone like, of course, people have stumbled into weird technologies that we take for granted now, but didn't necessarily understand. They sort of like started figuring it out, but didn't quite know what to do and stuff like that. But maybe there are things that people did do. It's entirely.
It makes you think about how much history is lost, how much we don't know, how much, if we did know, we could have been advanced as a human species. And
when Constantine burned the Library of Alexandria, we lost all of our ancient history. Everything that was known from a certain time backward, we lost.
It's like when you corrupt a hard drive that had all your family pictures from when you were like a little kid. It's like, no.
There's always one person. There's always one person that comes in and says, actually, there are some Arabic scholars that took backups of some of the Library of Alexandria, but not all of it. So
exactly. And then you start going into the caves of Nag Hammadi and things like that. It goes deep, but man, like I can't in my just being a human, can't fathom that this is the only time in history, in all of human history, that we've ever like had civilization like this.
Yeah.
We don't have evidence.
Keeping in mind that isn't it all but one of the ancient wonders of the world still exists, and that's the pyramids, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
So you got to think all of those amazing things that we could have seen that would have been like, whoa, nowadays are just gone. Things that at the time they probably thought, well, that's going to last forever. Nope.
Yeah. It's like, what is our equivalent for nowadays where we're going to be lost to time?
Yeah, like the only reason the pyramids are still standing, I mean, they're in a terrible state. I mean, if you look at them, right? They used to be like perfectly smooth and white, and
There's
everything.
like gold at the top too at one point as well, right? I think like the very tip of it. Some kind of
and you look at it now, and it's like, it's terrible. I mean, it's bloody impressive, but it's terrible, right? It's in a terrible state because a ton of its materials like reused for other buildings and whatever. And you're like, the only reason that exists is because it's physically hard to tear it apart, right?
Yeah, it's like they'd be gone if.
Because
is it concrete? It's a great example of technology that we lost. The Romans knew all about it, and then when we get to sort of the modern era, it took another nearly 2,000 years to rediscover something as simple as concrete, which is mixing of stuff together.
Yeah, it's just mixing, isn't it?
In the ground.
Yeah, that goes back to a conversation we had on BlenderNest a few weeks ago, talking about how many of us would be able to rebuild a computer.
Right.
Right. Remember that? Like how many? Like
complete scratch to build all the parts and to know how they go.
But even stuff like
stand on giants,
like metallurgy as well. I mean, we had that figured out way back in the Roman times. We lost that. That took a while to come back. But human technological growth is not linear at all. There's one really good museum here in London. I think it's called the Museum of London. Basically shows the lifespan of the city, and it's really cool because they do it chronologically. So they have you walk through prehistory first, and they've got like elephant bones and stuff like that, and molars and spearheads and whatever. And then you eventually come around to the Roman times, and it's all like super detailed. You see how they started building bridges across rivers and stuff, and they've got like sandals and coinage, like really. And it's really detailed. And then you walk into like the medieval Dark Ages, and you're like, what happened? Everything went wrong. It went from like building stone villas with these complex facades and like all this lovely armor to wood. Like
wood,
wood and disease.
So true.
Like we used to have heated flooring, and now we've got mud.
Mud. It's like what?
Yeah.
I mean, it's so funny that you have to laugh at the human condition, because if not, you will go crazy.
You just look back at it.
The more you learn, the more you realize you don't know.
Yeah, you look back and you think, we're so stupid. Like I even said to my dad the other day, like when you learn about medieval history, you think it would have been nicer living in the middle of the forest, like in some cases, right? You learn about the Black Plague or the Black Death or whatever, and like living inside of a village is terrible. Like, first of all, you're hungry, everyone's dying, and then like being a hunter gatherer. I mean, sure, maybe you would have had a shorter lifespan. Probably would have been a nicer way of life. Like, we somehow managed to go worse than backwards, like in development. Like, we started at like a fundamental primitive baseline of like, okay, we're just eating animals and plants and whatever, and we somehow managed to make it worse, like for a while, before suddenly catching up and going forward.
There's a movie like that kind of is about that a bit. I'm not sure if you've seen it. It's with Viggo Mortensen called Captain Fantastic, where it's like about the family that's living in the forest parallel to society, and then they enter it back into society, and they're like, what? How do people live like this?
I remember watching that, and I got depressed watching that because I was like, "Oh man,
wow,
like,
we really,
what are we doing?"
Because you're living in your own utopia in a way. It's kind of like removed from reality of sorts, where you're not really, I guess, as exposed to the horrors of the human condition. Like, I don't know.
I think we're living in one of the best times to be alive right now in human history.
Yeah.
But like, if you had to pick a time other than this, again, it's definitely not a linear progression of like it was bad and then it suddenly got better and better and better. Like, there are definitely hot spots of goodness, and I think like ancient Greece is probably one of those good hot spots. Like, and certain times of Rome, not all of it, but certain points of it, where you think, okay, everything else in between this is terrible, but there are some really good points. Like medieval era, don't go near that. But like, you know, ancient Greece, probably good. So, you know, it's just interesting because like when you're in school, you're taught a very simple narrative, like ancient, lack of technology, telephones, and now we're here, you know. But it when you start looking into it, and one of the most moving exhibitions I've been to, it was a Pompeii. They did a really good one in Times Square in New York. That was crazy because they let you get right up into everything. They had like, I don't know, I have no idea how they transported that stuff, but they had like fountains with detailed mosaics, and you're like, whoa, like, and you can touch it if you really wanted to, you can touch it. And you're like, that's real? That's actually come from Pompeii? And you're like, damn, like I haven't seen anything, and it's so detailed.
Yeah.
And it kind of messes with you a bit because you suddenly have to like reconstruct your understanding of human history, and I don't know.
That happens once a month. The more, like I said, the more you learn, it's just the more you learn, the more you realize. The more you know, the more you realize you don't. It's Socrates had that quote. It's like, the only knowledge exists, or true knowledge exists in knowing you know nothing. And it's like the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. Like and we look at it, you know, like the high points of Greece and Rome and more, you know, Western civilization. But if you look at the other, you know, other parts, while we went dark, you know, there were other cultures that were thriving that, you know, don't have that history or didn't make it into our vernacular.
Yeah.
But even, you know, like a society like the Dogon of Mali, phenomenal culture. All the Buddhist the stupas and things that they had, and their entire creation myth is really telling. If you look at it through a certain number of lenses, it's incredible. Their entire creation myth is it blows me away. But there's this whole, you know, and then there's the civilizations in South America and Central America that were rising, barring of course the human sacrifice part, which we could probably leave out. But other parts of their society were phenomenal.
That's also fascinating.
You know?
I can't remember.
Yeah,
I wish I could remember the name of it, but Aztec or Mayan, it's all blended together for me now. But one of them had a really fascinating tradition of like having to turn like out all the lights in the entire city, and they had to sacrifice someone and light a fire inside of their where the cavity where their heart was, and if it lights, then that means that they would survive like the next cycle of life, and then they would light the city fires starting from that. But it's all crazy stuff, like that they would paint like their children's face blue and they'd have to stay up so they didn't die in the night and things like that. And you're like,
yeah,
that's not even ancient hit. Like the Spanish were around, you know, and you got to But when you look at like artistic reconstructions of that, like the entire cities that now just don't exist, right? Or just some slight remnants of it. And as we say, you think when you're a kid, you think, okay, Aztecs, Mayans, that's part of this ancient block. You just like put it in a bubble in your head. But that's almost modern history.
Almost is.
And just things like that, and the whole, even the complex human sacrifice. I mean, the Aztecs, I don't know what day it was, but there's a record, I think, for the number of people recorded sacrificed in a day. And apparently, and I wish I had the details, but like someone, I think, calculated like so many per minute. And I don't know what they were doing, but it was just mad, like rivers of blood.
For science. Hey, the scientific method.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I know. I mean, and the craziest part is, that was coinciding with, amazing culture that they had, or amazing civilization. And you look at it and you look through the lens of, oh my God, there was, human sacrifice. It was horrible. Like, to us, it's grotesque. But if you look at the other parts of their civilization, there was some really amazing stuff. It doesn't pacify or forgive human sacrifice in any way, shape, or form. But it's still like, wow. I mean, the human mind and our ability to be ingenious is, we've been here before.
About the things like human sacrifice, though, we're sort of putting our moral lens on it, because I'm pretty sure during that time there are probably a few people that wanted to be sacrificed.
Oh,
because
I'm sure of it.
When you're so deep in like a culture with the narrative of like maybe the world's going to end and you need to do this, like this is the same reason why I guess people went to war in like crusades and whatever, even if you're throwing yourself for what could be perceived as a stupid reason further down the line, for you it's a conviction that just transcends everything.
Like you were saying, Kev, it's the lens you're looking through at the time. If you are back then everything's completely different. You honestly, you can never compare it to what lives we're living right now.
Exactly.
Not at all.
Just like when even Mexico City, that used to be a massive civilization, and again, artistic recreations for it are mad. When you look at the sizes of Aztec and Mayan cities were huge,
gigantic.
And there's practically no record of it now.
Yeah.
Except for, again, just small little outcrops like Chichen Itza and stuff like that. But
Teotihuacan. Yeah, it's amazing, absolutely amazing what was happening down there. And the conquistadors came and it was just basically, I'm not going to judge, but there was a lot of amazing culture and amazing technological breakthroughs that they had down there at the time, and that was happening all over the planet. And we look at things myopically through because we're educated in the Western system through the Western lens, which is fine. I mean, that's what we know, but we're discovering, and rightfully so, that there were these other cultures on Earth that were doing amazing things that we just had no knowledge of, for whatever, for many different reasons. It's we're a very diverse and amazing race.
Yeah, apparently the Amazon, the soil in the Amazon is really difficult to like cultivate regular crops and stuff. But apparently they invented a type of soil that they must have had like some kind of complex knowledge of agriculture. Invented a kind of compact soil that was, I think, burnt in a certain way as well to make it super fertile, and they would layer it on the grounds and then grow stuff inside of that. So instead of using the actual soil, they designed a type of soil to grow with.
Wow.
You're like,
yeah,
damn.
That's precisely why I don't look at this last 100 years as the only time humans have ever been this ingenious. I don't know if we've had Blender before and render farms and all that stuff, but
yeah, so Blender.